What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, very, very excited to have a longtime NFL vet for the Steelers, for the Jets. This man, Willie Colon and Bart Scott, they got in my YouTube algorithm, and the NY, the post game show for the Jets was just it was. I usually watch it like Monday mornings, and it was a thing of beauty, man. So Willie Colon, what's up, man? How you doing?
No, I appreciate it, man. It's a compliment. I think me and Bart actually get used to hearing. We had the opportunity to go to the NFL gala held by the United Way. So it was the Jets and Giants were two proud sponsors, and so the Jets and Giants, a lot of former and current players were in attendance. And I can't tell you how many Jets fans, because me and Bart was shoulder to shoulder, kissing hands, kissing babies, shaking hands. But anyway, the amount of Jet fans that come up to us like, "Hey, man, your post game has become our therapy. Like we've become Jet Nation's therapy on why the Jets continue to stink it up and all the issues that go on with that organization."
You know what I appreciate about you is, some of these guys. I saw J.J. Watt say recently. I think he just got elevated to call games. Like, I'm just not gonna be able to criticize players, and it's like, well. No one's asking you to crush a guy just to crush a guy, but like the fan sitting on his couch, like it's pretty like the Jets. Has it ever been difficult for you? Because I mean, you and Bart, maybe it's just your personalities, and the Jets. I mean, what were you supposed to say this year? But some of these guys, I mean, I thought Tom Brady kind of struggles with that, and I think that's why Troy Aikman's really good. It's like sometimes you just got to call a spade, you know?
Well, I think it's two things. I think it's definitely the player and his level of comfortability, and then also, it goes back to when I got off the field, man. I was working with SNY, and I'm currently still working with SNY. But we were able to have Jerome Bettison, and I only know JB. When I got to the Steelers, JB had just left the locker room, but he was still very
Yeah.
much around, and they were still honoring him for his career. And I remember I asked him that specific question. I was like, "Hey, man, how do you kind of walk the line between getting after a guy and just kind of not hurting the guy or not threatening your access into the locker room?" And he was like, "Listen, man, I always talk about the situation, not the player." And so I kind of always leaned on that type of advice. But when you're dealing with an organization like the Jets, who have year after year found some way to kind of lower the bar and kind of, just kind of be in dismay, it wears you out, because as two guys, as me and Bart both played for the organization, we both tried our damnedest to bring positivity and bring wins and championships into the building. It just didn't happen. Nevertheless, I think to your point, I think you pay the fan and the watcher a disservice if you try to talk around it, if you kind of dumb it up a little bit, because they're watching the game and they're just as passionate and intent and they pay attention to details just like you. So I think an honest and direct approach is always good. And we try to tell a lot of Jet fans we don't want it. Our goal is not to be negative and bash the Jets. That's not it at all. Our goal is to talk about how good the
You'd
Jets
rather go to the
are.
Super Bowl and win 16 games.
Right. We want to talk about the positivity. We want to highlight these guys. But we also realize we got a job to do. And you listen, we've been yelled at. We've gotten a couple slap on the hands and like, "Hey guys, pull it back a little bit." But also, and you know this too, John, like you're there to sell. You got to sell what you're talking about. You want people to watch and pay attention. And so it takes a lot of kind of it takes a lot of development, takes a lot of maturing, and you got to also know when to pull back and when to go forward. And I think we try to have a healthy balance and then have humor behind it. I see some of these, John, I don't know about you, but I see some of these debate shows and some of these people, you would think we're talking about world politics.
It's crazy.
And I'm just like, some of the people got to relax. Like, like,
Yeah.
like let's breathe a little. Somebody and you guys are just I was a passionate player and I'm all about passion. But some of these people, it feels like they want to rip your throat out, and I'm just like, bro, let's dial it back a little bit. And I've definitely gotten there from time to time, so I'm not exempt from that. But I just try to keep it 100 or keep it a buck, as the young people say, and have fun with it.
I think it's, you have perspective, but I mean, having been in there, how serious the coach is, the front office, and obviously the owners. I mean, these people. It's probably a little different because it's not like the channel you're working for is broadcasting. It's not like they're necessarily in direct business with the Jets, but these people, some of these coaches because coaches
Yeah.
bounce around. I mean, have you ever got over the last couple of years some texts and calls specifically with the Jets of like, I thought that was bullshit what you said, or any situations that, I mean, you're used to being uncomfortable. You're an offensive lineman, but I mean, to where
Right.
you're like, damn, I got to
No,
deal
I
with
haven't
this.
received anything like directly that, no one has directly hit my line, so to speak. But they will hit the producers, or there will be an email that would be kind of that would be sent around amongst the crew, like, "Hey guys, like last week was last week. We went there, but let's kind of like put a positive spin." And even when we come into production meetings, they'll try to put more of a positive spin or try to lay more boundaries of where we can go, so we don't have to fall into maybe saying something that kind of ruffle feathers. But I think most coaches understand what it is. I think good coaches don't really pay attention or adhere to it. And New York's a different market. It's just a different dog. But I think we try to just have fun with it, bring some insight, perspective, and also defend the players when we can. I don't think we always bash everybody. I think we do try to stand up and say, "Hey, this is why a guy responded this way, or this is what a guy needs more of, and this is what the organization coaches are not doing to make this guy a better player." I think we try to take that approach as well.
The NBA 82 game grind is done. And now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for the high stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw dropping plays. Can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in games all the way through the finals. Now, the time to back your favorite players and teams as they chase glory. All season long, DraftKings has been your go-to spot for NBA player props, and that doesn't stop now. Want to make your playoff experience even more intense? Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will Curry drop 30? Will LeBron drop 40? Or more? It's your call. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, lock in your bets, and let's make the playoff run unforgettable. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get 200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. I think one big difference, I was at the gym this morning and look up and Stephen A. and they're screaming about, Anthony Edwards last night. It's like, guys, game one, everything's going to be okay. Steph's out.
Yep.
I mean, Warriors in trouble. But like in basketball, it's players, players, players. In football, the coaches are a big element of it. And, obviously with
100%.
the Jets and that situation, which to me, like as someone, I never played in the league, but scouted, like it's way harder to make the league as a player than it is to get involved as a coach. Obviously, to be a good coach, like a Mike Tomlin, like an Andy Reid, but there are a lot of assistants. You're like, how's this guy? And some of these guys end up becoming coordinators, and then we see in these big spots the hype on teams and the Jets that are just completely overwhelmed, and you're like, this is what is going on. And the fans now, I think, understand. Listen, we can nitpick play calls right or wrong, but big picture over the course of a year, you're like, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I have come to love, especially, and I think it's starting to become more of a renaissance right now more than ever. Like I watched what Dan Campbell did in Detroit and bringing guys in who not only played ball but know ball and can also relate to guys. And I was privy to that because when I got to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2006, I had Russ Grimm as my offensive line coach. I couldn't have a better offensive line coach than Russ Grimm at that time of my career because I'm only 6'3". Russ was about 6'2", 6'1". He's an undersized guard, but he was tough as rusted boat nails, and so was I. And so a lot of my game he saw in himself. And so we were able to have not X and O's talk, but just being maybe an undersized guard, or I was tackle, actually, an undersized tackle, what it meant to play on the edge, the little things I had to do to be effective. And only a guy who played ball could have those conversations with a young guy who didn't play against LSU, didn't play at Alabama. I didn't play in the big time level. I went to Hofstra, D1 AA. And so the guys I were going against was all speed guys, 250 pounds, 6 foot, 5'11" guys. A couple of times I'll have some guys who are long rangey guys, but I was quick and strong, so I knew how to kind of neutralize all their skill sets. Russ was the first guy that said, "Hey, man, you're never going to beat a guy in an arms race, right? You don't have Jason Taylor type arms, nor do you have Trey Thomas type legs. What you do have is really quick feet, and you're strong at the point of attack, and you're aggressive. So he was able to kind of take my game and say, all right, let's do this. Let's add some pat sets. Let's if you got a wide nine, let's not kick vertical like a Joe Thomas and meet him at a point. I need you to go get him like how Jason Peters used to do with that 45 angle. Or he would be like, hey, man, you got a guy like Trevor Price was my first start. Trevor Price is at the time he's 6'8", 270 pounds. He's like, dude, he's coming downhill on your chest. You're going to have to learn how to anchor and you have to learn how to work your hands. So he taught me how to take every guy who I was going to go against and say, hey, this is what you can do. This is what you can do to beat his best and have those conversations game by game. And it helped, man. Instead of just saying what I see now and it pisses me off from coaches, to your point, John, who, because they read a book or they've been around ball long enough, they have this kind of worldly view of how to play each position. But not everybody's cut the same, right? And so I was fortunate enough once again to have Russell say, hey, man, for this guy, we got to work on this week. For that guy, this is what we got to do. It's saying like, hey, man, this is one of the things that pissed me off, John. I know you've heard it a million times. I just need you to go out there and put hands on him. Come on, dude. You know what I mean? Like me putting the hands on Michael Parsons or Von Miller, that's not enough, right? You gotta bring your A+ game against these guys because of how shifty, how crafty, their level of knowledge, how they work in their scheme. So you got to be disciplined in what you do, but you also got to see different angles of how to attack them to be effective on each and every play. So it's just a different dog. That's why I like what Dan Quinn is doing down in Washington, bringing guys who know ball. Obviously, Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn has done the same, and it's not a knock against guys who didn't play at that level or play ball at that level, but it's just a different dog talking to new dogs. You're trying to become big dogs.
Did you go to the combine?
No, I didn't.
Because I was actually looking for your arm length because I wanted to dive into this. I knew it would be interesting, and I couldn't find it. I'm like, I bet he didn't go to the combine.
Uh-uh.
Uh, I mean, speaking of the draft from a couple weeks ago, obviously the big talk for your group, the offensive line, was Will Campbell and arm length. Do you know what your arm length was? Because that was a big question on him. The difference is this dude played at LSU and was a 4-year starter, and you watch him talk, you're like, I think this guy's kind of a badass. I think he'll probably figure it out.
I'm one. I don't know what my arm length is or was. I think arm length tends to get overrated because I come from the school where footwork wins. If you're able to move your feet, stay center and balance, not get knocked off your balance on contact, usually you can work. Arm lift kind of plays into factor. If you're used to a guy who wants to go to stab the bull or kind of get down the middle of your chest or really work your arms, I think that more has to do with you maybe sometimes playing high and just having faster hands, right? Getting guys off you right away. Like it's so funny. I was on Good Morning Football this past Monday, and they were showing highlights of me against Mike Vrabel. Like Mike Vrabel was all of 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah, he's a
And
big
that was like
dude.
one of my big starts against the Patriots at right tackle. And I watched, it was funny. I was laid out of my stance a couple of times. Sometimes I looked like I just ran out of my stance, but I was battling. And then sometimes he got my edge and sometimes I got him. But I realized when I was kind of watching the little clips they showed, I was always thinking about how to attack, right? I just stayed on the attack. And I think for a lot of guys who have those little deficiencies, I think you only get in trouble when you become neutral. You always got to stay on attack, especially against an edge rusher. Just kind of keep attacking them because those guys are taught how to attack you, right? They get your shoulders, they attack your hands, your wrist, your elbow. So I think if you have a more of an attack mentality and just goes like that, that kind of neutralizes them because that forces them to think faster while you just stay in your mode, right? Because we know the snap count. We're on offense. So that's how I've always been able to process little things like that.
What do you think is the biggest reason? Because obviously, I mean, most of these guys that get drafted at offensive line, especially a tackle, they all fit measurables. They're tall. Most of them now are coming from the big programs. You
Yeah.
look at the guys drafted high, but a lot of them aren't going to become the next Trent Williams or Lane Johnson. Like, why does a guy like you play for a decade plus and playing a bunch of big games, and some of these guys are going to be out of the league in 3 or 4? Like, what's something that you can't measure at that position? Because to me, offensive line, once you get to a little bit of an intangible position like quarterback, more than some of these other positions, like you can either run or you can at corner.
I think I was talking to a young offensive lineman not too long ago, I think I forgot where he's going to school, but we were just talking ball, and I was like, man, the key to a good offensive lineman is you got to have the three things that align, and that's you got to have the brains, right, from the neck up. You got to be able to evolve and learn and get better, and two, you got to have the heart. You got to be tough. You got to be fearless. You connected, and number three, you got to have nuts, right, because you're going to go against some guy who just flat out his genetics are better than yours, and you're gonna have to play that guy on a day where you don't feel the best, and you got a knee issue, you got a back issue, and you got to be able to get yourself off the training table. And you got to battle, and you got to practice. A lot of these guys don't practice enough, John. And what I mean, like, I remember one time I got blindsided in a game against Cincinnati. There was a linebacker by the name of B.J. Johnson. He knocked me on my tail. I landed sideways. Anyway, I ended up having a hematoma on my tailbone, and it bit my tailbone like the end of an umbrella, like a J. And I remember my ass hurt so bad, my ass was on fire. They get me off the field, and I go back onto the game, and we're running stretch zone left and right, and I look like like Scooby Doo and the mystery. I'm running like this going down the field, just trying to. Cause my ass is hurting so bad, but I finished the game, and then that next week I practiced all week, and I can remember Mike Tomlin goes, "Ooh, Willie, I know your ass is hurting." I could just. And by the way, I'm in the meetings wearing a blue. I'm sitting on a blue donut, and he's like, "Willie," he's like, "Man, I know your ass is hurting, but." I appreciate you putting yourself out there and putting in a day's work. Some of these guys deal with some of these injuries, man, and they don't realize this because there's a difference between hurt and injured, right? Injured is you got a strain, pull, bruise. Hurt is something's dangling off your body. And so, and I just realized that, we sometimes we got to tell these guys to keep going. And the best you're going to feel is the first day of training camp. And then the best, you're not going to feel good for the rest of the year. And so, I think for me, what helped my longevity was just being able to play through pain, play through the tough times, and just keep going and to have a short-term memory and continue to work on my game. Because as you get older, you evolve.
Interested in investing in Bitcoin, but not sure how to get started? With the Gemini credit card, you can dip your toes into Bitcoin without even trying. Just spend like you normally do groceries, gas, or even a night out, and instantly earn up to 4% back in Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos straight to your account with no annual fee. The Gemini credit card is a no-brainer. And right now, you can grab a $200 Bitcoin intro bonus. Go to Gemini.com/card to learn more and start earning today. Terms apply. Again, go to Gemini.com/card and start building your Bitcoin stash today. Terms apply. The Gemini credit card is issued by WebBank. In order to qualify for the intro $200 crypto bonus, your application must be approved by June 30th, 2025, and spend $3,000 in your first 90 days. Terms apply. Some exclusions apply to instant rewards in which rewards are deposited when the transaction posts. This content is not investment advice, and trading crypto involves risk. For more details on rates, fees, and other Gemini credit card terms, see rates and fees. I was talking to a scouting buddy and he was telling me, the thing I love the most about Georgia, he's like, it's easy you go to a game, see these guys, but if you go to their practices, from Nolan Smith to the guys this year, they never miss practice because they know they can't or they will get replaced. And it has that NFL mindset. So they get there. You talk to the Chiefs. Chiefs players don't miss practice. Mm-hmm. You think they're not just randomly winning these last 6 years. Obviously, they got a great quarterback, but that culture, the last couple of years, they struggle to score, but they're tougher than you. And that toughness gets developed in practice. It's funny watching the NBA last night. It's like the records in the NBA, half these teams, like a third of the league's tanking. Half the teams, load management, however many, 15, 20 games, you played and started. You played in 100 games, started 100 games. If you were healthy, you played. And that's kind of the football mentality. And I think some guys can struggle with that, especially now bouncing around in college. You get to the pros, it's like, this is a long season. It might not be as physical as the 80s, but it's still physical. And you see some of these guys, especially these young guys, just kind of get overwhelmed early. And some of them can mentally overcome it, and some of them clearly get weeded out.
Yeah, it's different. My last 2 years with the Jets, I started to see guys who were high draft picks. You couldn't get them off the training table, right? Didn't matter how much you rehab them, didn't how you lessen their reps or allow them to do little things. You just couldn't get them off the table. Then you saw certain guys who ball meant the world to them, right? And they were limping around the field, getting through individual drills And when it came team time, they were at least getting 1 or 2 reps or 1 or 2 reps to be the best they can be for the reps. Those are the guys I'm like, those they get it. And so I don't think it's I think we're going to see more guys to your point, because the season is longer, there's more demand on the body. We're going to see more guys. We're going to have trouble getting off the training table. And the guys who I play with, who they just didn't miss, no matter how they felt. I think those guys will become a rarity, and that's because of the current state of where we at in college football.
You think toughness is like a quality that you're born with? I mean, you're a small school guy, but you're from New York. But I mean, there's a big difference, right, between D1 AA and going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Were they the defending champs when you got drafted?
They had just won. Yeah, they had just beat. That was Jerome Bettis' last game. It was Pittsburgh versus Seattle. They won in Detroit.
So, like, you probably think you're a tough guy, you get drafted, but then you go in that environment against that defense. I mean, is there a developed hardware that's just you kind of like, okay, I gotta figure this out. I don't really have a choice. I mean,
I
are you
remember
scared?
when
Are you scared your first training camp a little bit or nervous?
training camp. John, I remember when we were going into OTAs and Russ is laying down the rotation for the drills, and I'm running with the second team at right tackle, and I'm saying to myself, "Oh, okay, that's good." And our first team was Marvell Smith, Alan Faneca, Jeff Hardings, Kendall Simmons, and Max Starks at right tackle, and I'm like, "All right, these guys have just won a Super Bowl. I don't know how many reps they're going to get." And by looking at them, they don't look like they're about to take a lot of reps. Like they were just like, we're chilling. Like we just won a
Yeah,
Super Bowl. We're kind of cruising through.
hanging.
That wasn't the case. These guys were ready to go. So I was like, oh, so it gave me a sense of height. Like, oh, I gotta be ready to go. And so when the ones rolled out and then the twos rolled out, man, I remember sitting in my stance. First of all, I played upright. I played in a spread, so I was in a 2 point. I struggled to get in the 3 point when I got to Pittsburgh. And Russ was like, "You're gonna have to learn how to play in the 3 point stance. We're gonna have to work on that." So that took me some time. Nevertheless, I remember standing up and having like kind of a Photoshop memory of looking at Troy Polamalu, Casey Hampton, Ike Taylor. I'm looking at Aaron Smith. I'm looking at all these kick-ass dudes, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? like, how did I get here? Like, what is this right now? And it's so funny. We were just pulling an install, and we had 62 protection, and so the slide is going away from me. I'm one on one on the backside, and I had most dangerous. So anything that comes into B gap, I have to now honor. If nothing's there, I got to be able to kick out. And we have been working on it. And man, sure enough, Polamalu comes down, Troy, and he's in the B gap. So I'm like, all right, immediate threat. I got this guy. They're gonna throw off the widest. Right. So I'm locked in. Snap comes. I take my eyes off Troy for a second just to peek out here. I kick, and all I hear is woohoo! And I turn around, and all I saw was Troy's hair bouncing, floating away. And I can remember turning around like I didn't think he wasn't there. And Russ was like, "You can never take your eyes off." And it wasn't just a misassignment in my head. It was insane how fast he was and how fast that defense reacted. Because at one moment when I took he looked like he was about to bail out of there, and I had this one-on-one on the edge. And I remember it was so crazy when he was in the B gap. I remember him turning his back to me, and I remember seeing the 43 on his back. I was like, "Oh, he's not coming." So my eyes shot right out here. And as soon as I took my eyes off him, he did some like 360 spin, shot the B gap, and tapped Ben on the shoulder. And I remember saying to myself, "God damn, dog, this is the NFL." Because the speed and the craftiness, it was just like it all happened like this. And so it made me grow up really quick. And playing against a really, really good defense like we had made me grow up real quick.
But I mean, you came into the league at a time when I mean there were double days. I mean, it was
Oh
just
yeah.
training camp was intense, right? But it was great for a guy drafted in the mid round. You
Yes.
kind of prove yourself. It's much harder now. Aren't as many practices, aren't as many reps going around. I mean,
John,
it's more.
these guys would never know what the feeling is to wake up 6 o'clock in the morning. And if you ever been to Latrobe, Pennsylvania is where St. Vincent College is. So we would have to leave our dorm, go down into the training facility, get taped up, try to get some grub, be on the field by 7:30. I think it was like 8:15 the latest. And by that time, you could see the monks that would be coming down the hill, right? And while the sun was coming over their heads, we thought it was like seen out of Mortal Kombat. It was crazy. And if you've ever been to Latrobe, there's no trees anywhere. So we got these black helmets it's watching these monks come down this hill from praying. And my first coach ever was Bill Cowher, and he was just looking at everybody like it's time to go to work. And I can remember one time when we were on the practice field, we started to practice real kind of everybody's kind of limping around. We were kind of sobbing a little bit. And we were like halfway into practice, and he blew the whistle, cussed us out, and made us get back in our stretch lines and start the whole practice over. And then from then he was like, right to 907. When I tell you this is probably the most bloodlust 907 because everybody was pissed off. I mean, guys were firing out their goddamn cleats. And I at one point, if a brawl was to start, it probably would have been the best thing to happen to me because I was so out of breath because we was fighting and slugging for like a whole hour. And Cower, I remember Cower ending that practice after everybody's like tearing on each other, snot, blood. We're just like all pissed off that he made us start all over. It's 95 degrees. And he was just like, we are the Pittsburgh Steelers, and there's a target on our back. And if we don't practice to the level of this intensity, we're going to get our ass dragged by everybody we got in front of us. And that just kind of like, we're the champs. We got to practice like the champs. We got to respond like the champs. On top of that, we had an afternoon practice, right? And on top of that, all that blood, sweat, and tears that was plastered all over us, we had to put that back on. That wasn't dry. Those fans weren't drying those pads. Those fans weren't drying those pants. So you're putting back on wet jerseys, wet shoulder pads, wet pants, and you got to go get it again. And you got to have the same type of practice and intensity you had around the 9:15 mark. And so a lot of these young guys don't know what that means to like just smell like dog shit, and you're just I'm in trouble, just trying to earn a job.
Well, you know what's funny is like, I mean, I'm similar age to you. Is the Steelers brand? I mean, it's one of the more powerful ones in all of American sport, any team. But let's face it, the last, I mean, close to a decade, they haven't won a playoff game. I just
Yeah,
saw a headline, and you had a front row seat for Rodgers last year. He's not quite the same guy. Now, granted, his standard, I mean, he's one of the greatest players of all time. One of their minority owners said today that like this deal is more complex than artificial intelligence. Like it feels a little bizarre. Now, sometimes you don't have a quarterback, they're in a weird spot. It's not an easy fix, but clearly they're just waiting for him and it feels inevitability. But a lot different from the operation that you played for that was competing for championships. And the only thing that really stood in your way, it felt like, were the Patriots. Where it's now, it's like they're not even close to being like on the second tier with the Bills and the Ravens in the AFC. And now they're just waiting for Rodgers to be like, yeah, I'll see you guys next week. It's like, fuck, OTAs. I mean, starting. What are we doing here?
right. I mean, there's been
What's
reports
your
that
thoughts on the Rodgers Steelers
yeah, I
situation?
got
Long
you.
winded way.
So a couple things. I think there has been reports that Rodgers supposedly has a timeline of when he needs to say yay or nay. I think that's been documented. Overall, I think if for me, so I watched Aaron Rodgers last year, and I watched a lot of things. One, I thought he should have played in the preseason, right? That didn't happen. Then his first game was against San Francisco 49ers and San Fran, and they just didn't look like they were on the same page. Val at the offensive line, we're dealing with guys like Elijah Vera Tucker, who's coming off an injury. Morgan Moses is, some guy who's battling, trying to get himself acclimated. And on top of a Tyron Smith, who's pretty much a shell of himself, but really was putting in the best effort he could to fight out there. And John Simpson and Joe Tippmann, the center, were probably the best pieces on our offensive line. With that said, when Tyron struggled, Aaron struggled. And now you fast forward that, and obviously Devontae Smith comes. Aaron has all his weapons. We're still now winning games. The Jets don't have Brees Hall. The offense is going through Aaron Rodgers. The last couple of games, when Olu Fashanu came at started at left tackle, you saw Aaron one get healthier, and two, you saw glimpses of old Aaron start to pop on the tape because he had more time. Because when Aaron sits in the pocket, he shifts to his left to kind of open up to see the field, and you saw him to deliver the ball, and make some strikes down the field. I thought when the season ended, that was the best I've seen him in his 2 years as a Jets quarterback. Now, with all that said, him going to Pittsburgh, man, I think the Steelers looked at last year's last 5 games, meaning when they played the Bengals, when they played the Chiefs, when they played the Ravens, and they played the Eagles. There was an elite level quarterback on that side of the field that the Steelers just didn't have with Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson struggles to throw the ball in the middle of the field. He was throwing fades and go balls. And if the running game wasn't, clicking, they were just stagnant. So I think in their head, they're saying, all right, if we can keep Aaron Rodgers upright, we can get this run game going, and we can allow him to just sit back there and do what he does best, which is sure run an offense, but he also can improvise. And that's why I was happy to see the last couple of games with him as a Jets, because when he was able to improvise, we saw the flashes of Aaron of old. So I understand the Steelers saying, hey, there's nothing worse than watching a movie and knowing how it's going to end. That's how Steelers fans have felt the last couple of years, and they had to do something, and they're trying to do something. So if it means taking a 42-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles to allow him to do what he does, or give us a 70% of the GOAT, Aaron Rodgers, with a defense that we know can battle, we can probably make some things go.
So I think we'd both agree it's an upgrade, but you're still playing. I mean, Joe Burrow looks like modern day Montana back there, and Lamar's the greatest dual threat quarterback we've ever seen. Like, what do they do?
Yeah, and Joe Burrow has a defense. I mean, he gets MVP. They win. They win. They If their record doesn't look like what it looked like last year, he's hands down MVP over Josh Allen in my eyes.
Yeah. So getting Aaron Rodgers, does that change what we've seen this last, I don't know, 5 years where they're a 9 or 10 win team and just get ransacked in the first round?
They never recovered from losing Ben Roethlisberger. Like, Ben retired, and for some reason, they really didn't bring somebody in the building who they felt can be the heir apparent. Like, they had an opportunity to draft Dak Prescott, and they didn't. People forget that. Like, Dak was sitting there waiting for to be drafted. Dak went in the fourth round, and Ben was showing signs that he was on his way out, or they were, the light towards the end of the tunnel was coming sooner than later. And they never had somebody. You understand this is why I think I get mad when people don't understand how hard or acknowledge what Mike Tomlin's been through. He went from Duck Hodges to Mason Rudolph to Kenny Pickett after losing Ben Roethlisberger, a two-time Hall of Fame quarterback, soon to be Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, we're talking
They
about
did draft Kenny Pickett at pick 20, though. I mean, they went all in on him.
that's true, but my point is, like, they went from sugar to shit. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So that's where I'm going at. So, like, and they've still been able to make it to the playoffs and battle against some really high elite, some elite teams like the Buffalo Bills and Ravens twice a year, Cincinnati. Like, they've been able to battle, and sure, good outcomes, bad outcomes. But when you have that far drop off and still maintain some level of relevancy, like, I don't think people really understand what that means and what that looks like.
Did you think they were going to draft Shador a couple weeks ago?
I thought there was a shot, but I'm happy with Will Howard. I don't. I think people. He gives me those Captain America type vibes. Has dealt with a lot of adversity in his career. 6'5", seems like he cares and only wants to play football, which I love. Um, and so we'll see what happens. He's going to get his opportunity. What comes of it, I don't know. It's all up to him. But I don't mind the pick. But I did think the Steelers were going to take a swing at him.
Well, to
I
me,
didn't think
Will
it was going to be in
Howard,
the first round, though.
that playoff run he had at Ohio State, if he had played like that all season, there's no way
Oh,
he's there
forget
at the end
about
of
it.
the year. Or, I
Yeah,
mean, in
forget
the
about
sixth
it.
round.
But I say this, listen, they lost to Michigan and they could have laid down. He could have laid down, but he
Yeah.
didn't. That him, and you got to understand, the Steelers took Jack Sawyer and Will Howard. And and only because I got friends who are Buckeye fans and I pay attention to the world of football like you do. A lot of their teammates say, hey, man, if I was in a back alley, I'm taking Will Howard. I'm taking Jackson. Like, these are the two guys they're saying, like, hey, if I got to go to war and I got to go to a back alley with brass knuckles and a baseball bat, these are the two guys I'm bringing with me. Those are the two picks Steelers picked up, right? And so I credit the Steelers of always finding a guy who represents or has the same DNA as what the Steeler brand means. So I'm happy about that, and I like the first pick in Derek Harmon. The Steelers needed depth. I think they have nightmares of them getting beat up by Baltimore, and ran through, and I think they needed more depth, and they got it. So
The other news today is the Steelers and the Cowboys did a deal. What were your first thoughts on George Pickens, who clearly kind of got a little weird at the end of the year, and then this year they trade for DK Metcalf. But at one point in time, you're thinking, are they just going to play with both those two guys? Pretty big outside, weapons, Rodgers, but obviously bye bye to George Pickens. What was your thoughts there?
yeah, when I heard about George Pickens and the DK Metcalf combination, I was like, they pretty much got the same guy. Both guys are all about go balls and fades, right? And so I and I what I mean, same guy personality wise, right? Like, I watched 3 games of DK Metcalf this year. 2 out of 3 games he was snapping out on the sideline. Like, he didn't look happy. Like, he was either arguing, he was arguing with his position coach, or he was yelling at a teammate. And when I watched George Pickens, there was always something going on with him on the sideline. So I was like, oh, you pretty much got the same guy. The issue with the Steelers right now is that it looks like the Dallas Cowboys have their number two now with George Pickens and obviously CD being the number one. It allows CD to kind of continue to stay in the slot and make hay and do what he does. And now you have George to kind of run those go balls and phase and does what he does. But overall, it also allows, DK to kind of continue to be him. But the Steelers don't have a solid number two. Like I like Calvin Austin. I don't mind him. But when you're talking about a legit number two, still I don't know if the Steelers have it. So maybe they have something in the draft, but I don't know how they can look at what they had with both of them and feel like they won at the end of the day after watching George Pickens leave the building now.
Well, what's the line? Obviously, Tomlin can handle people. First time head coach Schottenheimer, who I think you guys just missed each other when you went to the Jets. He had been gone a year or two, but it's a pretty tough job to begin with coaching the Cowboys. Then you get George Pickens on top of your high price. It's not an easy. I mean, it's part of working for Jerry. Jerry's going to do what he wants to do.
Sure. Listen, I think if you're Brian Schottenheimer, you got to be on brand. And the Schottenheimer I know is when he was with the Jets, right? And they had a really good offensive line. They were running the ball and they had a defense to back it up. So if I'm Schotty, that's what they have to figure out. 2/5 of their offensive line last year were rookies. Now you got Tyler Booker, who you just got out of Alabama. Now you got a younger and more sturdy offensive line. But now you got to get a game breaking running back. You got to get somebody that can make hay and be as effective as Saquon is in the division. Now, I know there's only one Saquon, and I know there's only one Derrick Henry, but I look at guys like Karen Williams for the Rams and how impactful he was for the Rams last year. And I look at certain running backs who, even though they may not be the guy, they still have an impact on the game. The Cowboys have to get that guy. And I don't know if they have that guy in the building. We'll see. But I'm glad they got offensive line help. And it looks like from a draft standpoint, they were able to kind of fill some voids and guys who can play right now. But overall, man, the Cowboys have to get back to running the ball and taking some of them bricks off Dak's shoulders. I mean, Dak's going to be 32 years old coming off a torn hamstring. Think about that. There is no question about a run game. The only way that man survives if he does have a run game. So I think at this point it's redundant to keep talking about. They have to run the ball. Schottenheimer has to come alive, take some of them bricks off Dak's shoulders, and hopefully they can get a run game in a division that, you watch what the Eagles do, you watch what the Giants are going to do, and the Commanders see what Debo is for that offense, but they're gonna have to run the ball.
I'm sure you saw it's probably like a month ago when Rodgers went out with McAfee and he made a big deal about how Aaron Glenn cut him or told him like they were done. It's like, this is a guy who's played in the league 20 years, been pretty lucky. I mean, he's earned it because he's a great player, but most players hear that talk and you could tell he was shell shocked. Now, could they have called him? I don't know. I thought it's like, yeah, bro, they were told they didn't want you anymore. Like, welcome to the NFL. That was my thought. I don't know what your
but John,
take on it was.
Okay, let's. I'm glad we brought this up. Let's keep it 100. If you was to break up with a girl, would you prefer it over the phone or would you prefer it face to face?
Depends on the length. I mean, face to face, probably.
I'm a face to face type guy, right? Because I will respect anybody that says, "Hey, Willie, man to man, in my own presence, it's not working no more. It's time to move on." Rather than you act like Tommy Toughness over the phone, and I can't sense your energy, right?
Because I'm gonna hate you anyway if you do it that way, right? I'm gonna be like, he just called me, fuck this guy.
Exactly, 100%. On top of that, Aaron Rodgers has a compound in New Jersey where he just brought. Like it wasn't like he just went. He left a mansion and landed in another mansion. So it wasn't like he was staying at a Holiday Inn. Like he has a beautiful home here in New Jersey. To fast forward, I think people don't understand. When Aaron Glenn got to the Jets in 2013, he was a scout. He was learning the ropes. And I had just got to the Jets around the same time. From the time that man has left the Jets to going through his coaching carousel to going back into landing back in New York, the Jets have not made the playoffs, right? So I retired in 2016. I landed in the Jets in 2013. I retired in 2016. It is 2025. From that time span, just that time span, right? The last time the Jets were in the playoffs in 2010, they have not made the playoffs. And just to add another layer of that, he's walking into a building where the core of this team, the Quentin Williams, the Sauce Gardners, the Garrett Wilsons, the Brees Halls, on and on and on, when they were drafted, especially coming from winning programs, they had an expectation that they were going to change how the New York Jets are going to be perceived for the future and what the Jets look like. These guys have not seen the playoffs. If anything, they've regressed. Quentin Williams is going to be 27. He's 27 years old. 3 years, he's going to be 30. He's going to start coming downhill, right? Because if you turn on the tape, the man gets double teamed every damn play and still has to make hay. There's nobody on the other side of him to take some of that pressure off him. On top of that, we saw the aggression of Sauce Gardner. We saw the frustration of Garrett Wilson. So I understand why this man is sitting here saying, like, Aaron, thank you, but no thank you. We got to move on. And he's trying to get this core of guys who everybody follows in that locker room to believe that they can win in New York, that it is possible. And if we go with the mantra and have this philosophy, if we're going to be tough, resilient, kick ass, we're going to play a brand of football that travels well, right? I said this before, and not to be redundant. The Jets were 2-5 on the road last year. The Buffalo Bills, who went to the AFC Championship, they were 5-4, meaning they have a certain brand, which Aaron Glenn is trying to reciprocate, is tough, resilient, violent, efficient football. That travels from stadium to stadium. Good teams win on the road. So he has to get this team to win at home and be able to take that mindset and that brand and win on the road. He has no time for feelings. He has no time to deal with a quarterback, tell him, hey, man, I may have other commitments in the offseason. We'll see how this goes. Are you kidding me? At what time do I have to acknowledge that because you have other commitments, you have other things going on in your life, I now have to wait in limbo to see if you want to be a Jet quarterback or even if you want to play football. I was totally on board with what Aaron Glenn did. He goes, I got to move forward. I got this young core guys. I got this young locker room. I got to shock life back into, and I got to get back to playing winning football. By the way, we got Justin Fields, who we don't know what he's going to be like. All I know, he's 4-2 with the Steelers. They set him on the bench, and it was over. So I got to figure out where this kid's head's at. What can he do and what he can't do, and can he lead my offense? And I got to get this defense being a kick-ass, get this defense going to be, get them back to being a kick-ass defense. So I think so much was made up of like, oh, how dare he treat Aaron Rodgers like that? Please. When your house is on fire, that's the last thing you worry about somebody's feelings. You trying to take this fire out.
I've been to a lot of Niner practices when Saleh was the coordinator, and obviously everyone likes him. People have good things to say about the guy, but as a coach, it felt. Is it fair to say, was it him being overwhelmed? Was it the organization? Yeah, obviously, they had moving parts. One owner hires him, the other guy comes back from overseas. Like, why is it going to be different? Because Aaron Glenn, same type deal. Everyone loves the guy. It's like it's a really impressive guy, unique career, great player, awesome coach. Dan Campbell swears by him. I mean, they turned around the Lions. Hell, I mean, he won a game week, whatever it was, 18 with me on defense. It was crazy that they won that game. So, but it's like this is a hard job because, like you said, a lot of high-priced future players, but they've already been in the league. Now they start calling PIs on Sauce Gardner. He might not be an All-Pro anymore. It's like it's a difficult. Why is this going to be different for Aaron Glenn, who feels like everyone's rooting for?
Well, I think everybody's rooting for him because they feel like they've been watching a nightmare for the last 4 years, starting with Zach Wilson all the way up to Aaron Rodgers. Nothing has transpired. And I think when you talk about Aaron Glenn, the fact that he is coming from this Parcells tree, right? And on top of that, he was in Detroit and has shown his ability to not only coach amazing football players, but coach guys who man, I don't know who this guy is, but they're winning a football game, right? Like the Detroit Lions were decimated with injuries last year, and they were competing and battling their tails off. And so I think people are rooting for Aaron Glenn because not only is he a guy who knows the organization and knows everything about New York, I think people just want to see the Jets get out of this kind of purgatory they've been living in, right? And they want a coach who can flat out motivate these guys, drive these guys, and believe in these guys, and get these guys to believe in themselves. Because, John, doing the pre and post is fun. But what breaks me and Bart's eyes, man, is when they interview a Breece Hall, when they interview a Garrett Wilson, and when they interview some of these other guys, and the fire is dimming in their eyes. Like you can see the fire, the why, the want to, it gets darker and darker and darker because they were told once we got Aaron Rodgers, that one piece, we're out of here, baby. Playoffs, and maybe we can make a
Yeah,
run. That's how they
I
felt.
believed it.
Everybody believed it. So when I see Brees Hall, man, who came off an ACL, can't find himself in the offense, looks defeated, not even looking to the camera, just kind of have this star off, this kind of far off stare. When I look at Quentin Williams, and he's just kind of, giving you the whole this whole rigmarole, like, and I see Garrett Wilson look internally frustrated, be externally he doesn't want to be a distraction or cause any trouble. Like you just start seeing this from guys who if they were in other places, they are kicking ass and they are stars. But because they're in New York and because they haven't been able to win and they've been having to deal with the pressure and everything that comes along with being a Jet, they're starting to clam up and they're starting to look small on TV. And that's heartbreaking because they're all damn good football players who are also damn good people. And football, when you don't win, sucks. It makes it harder. So I think Aaron Glenn right now understands that having been a player, a coach, and now a head coach. I think he's like, all right, I got to get these guys I got to get them back feasting again. And so I think Aaron can do it because he has a philosophy and he knows a brand of football that wins.
Did you think Rex had a chance at the job?
I did. I did. I thought the media was pushing for him. I was pushing for him. I thought Rex was somebody who was going to come in and had some time away from the game to kind of reset himself. And with the defensive pieces we had, Rex he's a genius. I don't know how to explain it any more than that. I know it's simplistic, but I think he's a genius when it comes to defensive football. And I thought one of the things that we're going to do different if they was going to hire Rex was not bringing his guys, but bringing qualified guys to complement Rex. You get what I'm saying? Because I
Yeah.
think Rex comes with his own guys, and I don't necessarily think those guys help Rex. I think Rex's biggest issue is he's loyal to a fault. I think they will have to bring in some guys to kind of help Rex be Rex and let that defense kind of go back to what the defenses that we loved Rex coach.
Obviously, you get to be around it. Really, I'll get you out of here in a second, pretty closely. But do you ever miss just playing and just like
Oh shit,
driving
man.
some dude back and scoring a touchdown?
Every year when they cut the grass around June and July, I still have that eternal clock. I don't know if every other ball player has it, but around June and July, doesn't matter what's going on in my life personally. There's a clock, there's a sense of anxiety I start to get where I'm like, I should be training. I should be getting ready for the season. Like I should, I still like, I sometimes I'll get up in the morning and I'll just go run because I feel like my body is like preparing. It's so used to preparing for the season, so used to getting up and grinding and kind of getting after it. I definitely miss it. Without a doubt, I just miss just that me versus me mentality every day. The camaraderie is awesome, sure. Rolling out there with your helmet, feeling good, skipping around, banging heads. Oh, that's good. But just the intimacy of football, I definitely miss 100%.
Like a still photo of like Tiger Woods. There's like 10,000 people around him. It's like I don't even think he notices any of these people. As a
No,
player, when you're like AFC Championship game, Pats, do you even hear, or are you just so dialed in, like who's over you and the play and your assignment? Do you even know what's going on around you beside like the play in terms of the 80,000 people in the building? Like, do you feel that when you're playing, or are you just so dialed once it's rolling?
man, I've been asked that question before, and the only way I can explain it is the louder it is, the quieter I become, and the quieter it sounds to me. It only gets loud when less people are in the building, and I don't know why that makes sense. But I've played in Baltimore in the height of Baltimore when Ray,
Yeah.
Ed, Terrell, like when it was the Legion of Doom. Yeah, I played all like I've seen I've played in stadiums where like man, the walls of Jericho are coming down and the place is shaking, and I've always had me and I know a couple of my other players, my teammates, excuse me, always had this surreal feeling of just kind of staying here. Where we none of this, you just don't hear it. Like you just don't hear it. You just kind of locked in. And I'm still able to make the calls I need to make on the line. I'm still able to talk enough shit to the person I want to talk to. I can still all that, but when you look at it from a TV copy, it sounds like an earthquake is going on, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I sat through that, like So it's wild.
Was that tailbone injury the most pain you ever played through?
Oh hell no! My last no, my the tailbone was fun because I had that blue donut and I got a little empathy, a little sympathy walking around with that thing. No, my knee injuries were pretty tough. My last couple of years with the Jets, man, where I was bone on bone and I was doing everything to kind of stay on that field, and that sucked. Just kind of trying to save my bullet so I can at least go out there and put on a show for Sunday. That was rough. My knees were kicking my ass, and just going through that, barely being able to get out of bed, limping around the building, um, rehab before practice, rehab after practice, rehab. I was always kind of doing anything and everything to kind of being able to stay upright and fight. And that was tough, mentally and physically. That was really tough for me.
Well, hopefully this fall you guys will have some more positive things to talk about after some wins and some excitement and Fields running around, the defense looking good. Because I'm telling you, what Aaron Glenn did in that with some of those dudes, I mean, it was crazy.
But that's what's so impressive. What's going to be so impressive about this season? Because I'm talking into existence, and I believe in affirmations.
Playoffs?
I don't know if playoffs, wild card at least. Why not? Right?
You think they're
Like,
better than the Pats?
yeah, they're better than Pats. I
They
believe
have
so.
better. They have better roster.
They're just a better team. Like I'm not a believer in Drake May. Like Drake May was okay to me. Like I don't like he was okay to me coming out of college. He was okay to me last year. Like I don't nothing really kind of shook me up to believe like this guy's like, oh wow, watch out.
Him and Caleb made a lot of plays when they were down 20-0. The game didn't matter. Both
right,
those two guys. They got a lot of
right.
talent, but they made a lot of plays when the game didn't matter.
Yeah, like I watch Drake. He can make like obviously there's a lot to his game from an athletic standpoint. I give him that. But like he didn't wow me. I wasn't like, oh shit, like here comes the future of the Pats. I was just like, okay, it's Drake May. Now he can change. The game may slow down for him. They got Will Campbell. They've added some more pieces. But I always thought the Pats defense fought hard. Yeah, week after week, they
Yeah.
just couldn't put no points on the board.
And Miami's in shambles. So
Do you really think they're shambles?
I think they're going to be pretty bad. I mean, when the coach comes out at the end of the year and says, "Yeah, we're finding guys, they just don't show up on time," it's like they don't respect that guy at all. I,
That's why you
I'm
if you
out. I'm
don't
out on them. When I heard that, and he was being honest. He's like, "I don't even think money works." It's like, can you imagine showing up late to a Tomlin or a Rex meeting? I mean, out of
no,
respect, no chance. It's not about the money. You
no,
don't do
out of
that in any
respect.
industry if you respect the guy you're working for. So to me,
But
it's like
John,
the
this is
McDaniel thing's in trouble.
this is why I'm nervous for the core of football because last year I don't maybe you know his name. Who's the linebacker for the Niners that wouldn't go in the game when they needed him to go in the game?
Yeah, Devandre Campbell.
I couldn't fathom that. I couldn't fathom. It doesn't matter how mad I was at my position coach, my current station within the team. When your number's called, you got to go and respond, right? Emotions aside, it's always been about playing your best for either the name in the back of your jersey, the symbol in front, and for your brother. That's always been the holy trinity as a football player. To tell your coach no for whatever reason in live action, that for me was like football's going in there.
He
And I'm
didn't just
talking
say no,
about
Willie. He walked in the locker room. I think he left. He just
right.
left.
Like and this isn't like an AB moment when AB took off his jersey. It was like
Yeah, yeah,
right. Like AB has this. We know there's a lot goes on
yeah.
with AB. This isn't like a Vontae Davis, God rest his soul, who was like, no, I'm leaving because I'm retiring. This guy didn't want to play. He told him no and left the field. And I'm saying to myself, wow. Like I thought I would never see that. Like to waive coaches off solely because you just don't want to play anymore because you have your reasons. Like that. That just did. I that don't that did, from how I was brought up in this game and the people that just doesn't happen. And I've had guys have legitimate reasons for not playing, but they still walked their tails out there and played the game. And then whatever issues they had, they dealt with behind the curtain. But to say no and leave your brothers high and dry, that's not. It's tough. But then when you
I,
look at NIL and these guys are not paid, or if they don't feel like if you bench them or sit them, all right, I'm out of here. We're going in the wrong direction.
to me, the Campbell thing, a little bit of an outlier because he was an older player and the entire team turned on him and was like, get this guy out here. They cut him immediately. It wasn't like, yeah, he kind of had a point. Like everyone thought he was crazy. To me, the Anthony Richardson thing is one of the craziest things in league history. But again, like what gives me hope as just a football fan for 40 years is the entire team also turned on him and was like, we got to sit this guy down. You got to bench him. So I do think the culture, but the more and more this stuff seeps in, turns into two. Does it turn into 10 guys? Does it turn into 50 guys? Makes you a
But
little nervous.
the reason why I'm nervous because I think
Like
it
the Anthony
threatened.
Richardson, you agree that that was one of the craziest things you've ever seen?
Yeah, that was nuts. I didn't even think that was possible, which was wild because I had went down to Florida and I watched him play against South Carolina. It was him and Spencer Rattler going at each other, and he looked like the most in shape human being I've ever seen in my life. Like, and
Yeah.
we were down in Florida in
In the
95-degree
heat.
weather, and he was running up and down the field like a madman. So I'm like, that I don't know if he took like a Red Bull that kind of sped up his heart
Yeah.
too much. I don't know. It was insane to see. But to fast forward, I talked about playing for your jersey and playing for your brother and all the other stuff. Now, when you see these kids like just tap out on a whole program, like, tap out and just leave for the sake of because they feel like they're not being treated right, yeah, it's just wild, man. It's just like I don't understand where like listen, people put their kids in sports to pull the essence of what it means to play in the sports, like hard work, perseverance, responsibility. Where like those little nuances, that's what we put our kids in sports so they can retract that. And hopefully, if they're not able to play professional sports, they can take it into their work life and have that on a part of their foundation. But that's being threatened right now because these kids are saying, hey, if I don't get it my way, I'm out of here. And now we're starting to see guys tap because either they're not in shape or they just don't want to play. And there's a correlation there. And I hate it, man, because whether we like it or not, we are walking role models and a walking brand for how sports should be played. And we try to do our best as ball players to represent that. And when we kind of fall out of that, it's like, you know,
One thing I do wonder, like anything with Aaron Rodgers, like that's on Aaron, no agent or whatever. But like Nico, the kid at Tennessee, clearly his dad and all these guys now have so many people involved in their life. 18, 19, 20 years old. I mean, clearly awful financial decision. You're at Tennessee, which is basically the NFL light. You're making over $2 million. Dollars. You go to UCLA, which is a shitty program in 2025
and his
relatively.
brother was there the year before.
Like, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
but but it's like, is that his decision, or is like his dad says you're getting screwed, and this other guy says he's getting screwed? You got all these people in the cookie jar, and it's just all out of whack. Which, listen, I got no problem with anyone making money, but clearly something is it's just off kilter, you know?
But the issue, John, is a lot of these guys who are receiving this money, and I don't even know how much. I mean, there's some of the numbers I've heard is ridiculous. I think guys making 20K a month or something like that. It's like it's nuts. Um, the people around them are just sucking them dry. Like an 18-year-old does not know what to do with 20K a month, right? Like all he knows is, all right, I'm some cars, some money, some I'll put some away, give some to mom. And by the time you look, and on top of, there's a fine. Whoever's helping you ship your tape around or get you to different schools, there's a finder's fee. These kids got to pay. And so there's just some of these kids, man, they're getting sucked dry, and it's not cute. And a lot of these kids are suffering from it. And I know because I know a lot of coaches who are in college, and they're like, man, it's tough. And what's crazy, the D1 AA's where I came from, they can't give a kid, they can't they don't have the bank to do any of what Alabama, Ohio State, or Texas. They don't they're the big schools are taking their bottom feeders, bumping them up just so they can fill a roster. And these D1 AA programs are just dealing with whatever they can wrap up, and hopefully give a little change. And they're pulling from the division underneath them. So it's a weird time we're in right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys make decisions based on like, I mean, you ebb and flow throughout your career. You know, in a spring practice goes bad, then the next one goes good. But the emotions, I mean, when you're young, you have no emotional control, and you look back like you would have been better off. Most of you guys are not going to play in the NFL, and if you do, a lot of your careers are going to be short. But if you had played your whole career at Tennessee, at Ohio State, at USC, that's going to benefit you for the next 50 years. But all of a sudden, you've played at four different programs. It's like, who's even claiming you?
Right, but and I also think anytime you have this conversation openly and publicly, people think like, oh, they don't want the guys to get paid. We're not saying that at all. I want the
No.
guys to get paid a lot of money. But I also, if I'm sending my son to the University of Tennessee and he calls me and says, hey, Dad, I'm not starting this fall. I got beat out. And I'm like, all right, son, well, we got to figure out how we can get you on the field. Like, for instance, when I got to Hofstra, I thought I was going to start at nose tackle. They got another kid in. We battled it out in camp. I lost. Set out that fall. Springtime came around. They said, "Hey, Willie, you have an opportunity to either go to offensive line or stay on D line and battle it out again." And I was like, "I can." And this was my exact words. I cannot go through. The fear of going sitting on the bench again and having my parents sit behind me and watch me sit in the bench, I rather suck at offensive line and be on the field battling than sitting here holding my helmet just waiting for an opportunity to get in. So I went to offensive line, and it was obviously the best decision I made. But nevertheless, for me and how I was built, I got to compete. I got to play. And I wasn't looking the way out. I was just merely wanting to play for Hofstra and be the best I could be for Hofstra. And at that point, it didn't matter on the defensive line or offensive line. I had to get on the field.
But you would have been a good example of like word would have got out that Hofstra has this guy that's probably going to get drafted going into your junior or senior year. That Rutgers, Maryland, even if it's not Ohio State or whatever, other bigger programs would have called you. And it's like, hey, Willie, let's just say we got 200 grand. You want to come play at Maryland? Well, Willie Colon's probably there, right?
Hands down. I'm on it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if the
And who knows?
money,
Then maybe you end up
motivation.
going second round, right? It can benefit your career.
But I also
I
look
never
out.
have a problem guys going up. To me, the Tennessee to
No,
UCLA is like, what are we doing?
I don't. I'm with you. Like I understand money being the motivation. I understand that aspect. But when I look at how my career went, if I didn't have my offensive line coach Damian Wroblewski, and if he didn't put everything he had into me and teaching me what it means to be an offensive lineman and how to play the game, I don't know if I would have had that same type of investment from a guy who was at Rutgers, right? Like I don't know. You would like, well, they're paying you, they got to invest in you, but if they're giving out that type of money, if you don't make it out, if you don't pan out right away, they're going to give it to somebody else. So it's like it really takes the kid to figure out his why. Am I leaving solely because of the money, or am I leaving because I feel like I'm not getting the best opportunity? I'm being mistreated. If my kid is like, hey, I don't want to leave. I want to figure it out here. All right, let's do that. But if I want to leave because I feel like being slighted, well, we're gonna have a hard conversation. Are you doing your best? Are you trying to persevere and being better, or are you taking the easy way out? Because if you're taking the easy way out, son, I can't let you leave.
Okay, Willie, I took way too much of your time, but
No,
I
it's fine. I
appreciate
enjoyed
it.
this.
And I would imagine the weather starting. You got that northeast humidity coming right down the pike, huh?
Man, it's been raining the last couple of days. It just broke sunny and pretty today, so it's about 74 degrees, so it's nice.
You got big plans this summer? You doing anything fun?
I'll be bouncing around. My wife, we have her second home in Jackson, Mississippi, so I'll be bouncing between New Jersey and Jackson, Mississippi, and just doing what I do.
Yeah, you think the humidity's bad in the northeast? You go to Mississippi, you get that sweat on,
Ooh.
huh?
John, you got to peel your clothes off you. It's ridiculous. It's intense.
Thanks, Willie. Take it easy.
Always.